The more light and love, and it's not trite, it's just really when we fill our bodies with that light, that we are able to hold, the more of us that are able to do that, the more that we're going to be able to move through this with a little more ease and grace. The more that we're hooked into the story and we're worrying and we're fighting and we're freaking out, we're feeding it. So it's, that like the old Buddhist thing, which one do you want to feed, right?
This is Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney Ann Jenkins. Hello and welcome to the 85th episode of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This episode, I have with me Laurie Parente. Laurie is a seasoned angel medium, intuitive guide, and energetic healer dedicated to empowering individuals on their journey of self-discovery. With over a decade of experience in the field, Laurie brings a wealth of knowledge and expertise to her practice. Her journey into the world of healing and spirituality began later in life, in her 40s, when she felt a profound calling to explore her innate spiritual gifts and connections. During this transformative period, she discovered her passion for helping others navigate their own spiritual paths and reclaim their power. Laurie approaches her work with compassion, empathy, and authenticity. She creates a safe and supportive space for her clients to explore their inner world, release limiting beliefs, and tap into their true potential. Laurie's holistic approach addresses the mind, body, and spirit, recognizing the interconnectedness of all aspects of being. She incorporates practices such as meditation, breathwork, and visualization to help clients cultivate inner peace, balance, and harmony. Through a variety of modalities, including energy healing, intuitive guidance, meditative journeys, and by channeling angelic light language, Laurie assists clients in reconnecting with their inner wisdom and intuition. She believes that true healing occurs when individuals can align with their soul's purpose and live authentically from a place of love and empowerment. I had a really profound conversation with Laurie, and we talked about some topics that are very challenging to discuss sometimes, but are really important to be able to include in the conversation in understanding our pain and the human existence and how to exist within that. I hope that you enjoy the wisdom that Laurie shares during this episode. I think you will.
So wonderful to be with you. The topic of the podcast is about following your inner voice and your authenticity. And I feel like just the nature of what you do in your life, you've had to really pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things that I like to ask is, when is the first time that you realized that you had this inner voice and you recognized that you were able to follow it?
I would say it was pretty young. That I always knew that I had an inner voice that was me, and that my angels were always around me. But I learned very quickly not to trust it, right?
Mm.
Because I would speak it, and then the adults in the room would say, "Oh, she's just making it up, having fun, playing with her imaginary friends." So I learned quickly not to trust it, and that led me down a pretty difficult path for a long time until I started to trust it again.
So your upbringing, were you encouraged to follow?
Yeah, it was more, I would even say it was more than trying to hide it. Like I wanted it to go away. I didn't
Mm.
want to be different. I didn't want, sometimes things would just come out because I would see things and I would know things, and it would be so available to me that I would speak it, and it would never go over well. Telling everybody what's in all the Christmas presents never goes over well.
Mm.
Telling the lady next door that there's a big angel on her lawn because someone's about to die, that stuff didn't go over well in the 70s. So, I didn't want to be different. None of us want to be different. We don't want to be kicked out of the tribe. But when we get older, we realize that we were all different. And it's just too bad we didn't express it when we were younger.
Yeah, definitely. So what was the point in which you were able to reconnect with that and have it be okay for you to be able to present to the world?
I think it came in waves in my life. There were different times where I would be around different people, even as a teenager, and it would be with someone who was receptive to it, and it would come out and it would go over, and I'd be like, oh, okay. But then the next time it wouldn't, right? And it kind of weaved its way through my life. My mom died when I was 27, and there was so much of an opening
Mm.
then. Um, and just after her death, like my big extended family, my big family kind of fell apart. And so it was that loss of any kind of family support that made me really start to trust it. I would still say I didn't share it until I was in like my early to mid 40s. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, sometimes I would share it, and other times it would just get mirrored back to me that I wasn't quite ready. Um, but then when I did step into it, I stepped into it, both feet in, went right in.
I guess for the listeners, just so we can like clue them in on what you do, what exactly were you preventing yourself from sharing? What were you experiencing that you felt like you had to sort of hold back?
I think so much of who I am and what I'm here to do is to bring that kindness and that compassion. And I could just so easily see when people were being hard on themselves, or they were being unloving or unforgiving, or really letting their past kind of control their lives. So after I went through my own healing and kind of stepped out of all of those frequencies of that self-abasement and that loneliness and all the things that come along with not being authentic to ourselves, I started to realize in my conversations with friends that I was able to help them to find that light and to let go of everything that was dragging them down. So I really work with people to help them find that inner light and that inner wisdom, and to release all of the generational stuff and the conditional stuff, and allow themselves to shine. Like I call my work, reclaim your light. We all start off with that light, and then we have like this forgetting period where all these things dim our light. And we need to, at some point, we just have that feeling, that calling to reclaim our light and to share who we are authentically.
Yeah. And the way that you're able to access this information in order to help people, do you have like a process that happens, or is it different for everyone?
It's definitely evolved over the years. As someone who was able to connect into spirit and have mediumship messages coming through, it took a while and working with some teachers to figure out how I could turn that on and off and not be, going through an airport and just kind of with blinders on because there's all these spirits around me. And so that has really come to me probably in the last 4 years, how to connect into others and their loved ones and their spiritual team without it being overwhelming for me all the times. Because there was really times when, we'd be in a restaurant or something and I'd be like, I gotta go. Like I can't be here, or, in a mall or at a football game. And so learning how to work with that energy and how to be in control of that energy has really been a game changer for me. So I have a place that I go that's called my soul sanctuary. I teach people how to go to their soul sanctuary and connect with their team and their people. And I honestly just close all the doors and windows when I don't want to be overwhelmed by spirit.
And what a time. So we're in Halloween today. So do you feel something more on a Halloween day like versus another day?
Interestingly, I on my Instagram stories, I do daily angel messages, and it's always kind of at the end of my morning time with my team, a message will come through. And this one, it was interesting to me because they said it's not connecting in with your spiritual team, your loved ones, your angels, your guides, your mentors, is not about the day on the calendar. It's about the love. It's about the belief and the curiosity and the possibilities. And I found that interesting because then when I went on Instagram, everybody was posting about, the veil is thin and all this stuff. And um, they were just really showing me that we all hold our own veil. And if someone outside of us has told us on this day of the calendar year, you can connect in because this veil will thin, then we're like, yay, this day I can connect. But what if we can connect every day? What if it's an outside construct that's been put on us? So interesting that we're talking today, and that's what they were saying to me today. It's not about the calendar day.
Right. Yeah, it's about our belief systems.
right?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot too, especially when it comes to like the new moon or the full moon and making certain intentions on those days. It's very interesting because I feel like you can make an intention any day.
Right? And I did ask them that this morning, interestingly, and they said there are days like the um, eclipse and the equinoxes and the solstices where it is a little bit easier for them to push through. And of course, they are not set to any calendar day. They're always, moving around. So that was interesting. They said, don't look at the calendar, look in your heart and connect.
Is this something where you were able to gain information and knowledge as a collective of society of where we are right now, or is it more individual based that you're able to like tune into?
Both, both. So when I work one-on-one with people, I'm definitely connecting into the individual and and the collective because we're also influenced it, right? I'm not sure where you are in the world, but in North America right now,
Mhm.
there's like this pall, like kind of over the entire continent um, of what's going to happen. I'm personally Canadian, but it is all over North America that there's just such this worry right now, and there is such a it's just such a time of if we can all let go of the worry and hold the vision of the highest good for all, um, I think it's a bit of a game changer because the worry is just feeding it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a really loud train here, so I'm trying to like not let that interfere. I'm in Nashville, by the way, so yeah,
Okay,
I definitely feel that, especially with all of like the hurricanes and the destruction that caused. It's causing a lot of people to worry
right.
in many ways. But and then the election, like yeah, there's a lot of things happening in this current moment that would make that feel really heavy, I think.
I think so. And the more light and love, and it's not trite, it's just really when we fill our bodies with that light that we are able to hold, the more of us that are able to do that, the more that we're going to be able to move through this with a little more ease and grace. The more that we're hooked into the story and we're worrying and we're fighting and we're freaking out, we're feeding it. So it's that like the old Buddhist thing, which one do you want to feed, right?
Yeah, I feel like there's so many different directions I could go with you right in this moment. Especially, I think fear has a lot to do with how worry plays into and what happens, like especially just even the concept of death and how that worry kind of like informs actions or choices. So what have you learned about death or communicating with others on the other side that you might be able to share to maybe suppress some of the fear?
Well, I think it is one of our biggest fears. And I remember the first time that I clearly connected in with my mom and my nana. It was like sometimes my voice will go a little bit off because they're bringing through information. Um, it was like that fear just dissipated because I saw them as beings of light and I saw myself as a being of light. So it's a difficult concept to get our heads around, but dying here is being birthed back into multidimensionality. So it's actually as we leave here, we're celebrating going home. This isn't our home. We're here for a human experience. We are divine beings of light having a human experience. And all this fear has been pressed upon us. And it's very difficult. That fear is really difficult. When we have these experiences, and when I lead people on journeys to meet with their loved ones and they see them and they feel them, it's like that fear just goes away. And I know there's a study right now at the University of Texas, and I can't quite remember the professor's name, but it's all about after death induced communication, where they're actually studying this. They've gotten a federal grant and they're leading people through automatic writing to connect with their loved ones. And they're having, really, really huge success in helping people who are really stuck in their grief. Like maybe it's been 10 years, 12 years, and they're really not living. And so once they start to connect and realize their person is still here, just in a different form, it changes your perspective on death and it changes that fear.
Yeah. So I had the privilege of being with my grandmother like up to the last like 5 days before she died. I was actually supposed to take care of her longer. And I moved across the country to do it, but like that those were the amount of days that I had with her. And yeah, she was, you could definitely tell like she was preparing herself and it wasn't scary, and she was kind of like ready to go and transition, and it was really interesting to watch and witness.
And how beautiful that you got to witness that. And I'm sure that
Yeah,
it changed your views on what that process is like.
it made it not so scary, but then also I've had like a lot of tragedy in my family too, with like suicides and stuff. So like, what do you feel about that?
That's a big topic. From a soul perspective, what I've learned in channeling people who have what I call completed suicide. I don't like the word committed because you commit murder, you commit bank fraud, you commit I don't know, but you're either attempted or you completed. Is that they've gone so far under their own veil that they're no longer living their mission, their purpose, and that there's actually a decision with the higher self that says like we're so off track that the chances of us getting back on track are going to be pretty small, and we're maybe going to do a lot of damage if we stay. And we're going to hurt people and hurt ourselves, and they'll just show me like that if they stayed it would have just gotten so much worse for everyone. And so there's actually a decision made with their team, not always, because sometimes it's just like a snap decision, that they will birth back into multidimensionality and like try again. So it doesn't help really with those of us who are left to think, why were they so far off their mission? Why did they
Yeah.
make this choice? Because we're the ones in our society, it's such a taboo that we're the ones left with dealing with somebody else's choice. We get the fallout of their choice, which makes it hard in the human world. But they've just really shown me that they had a mission, they were here, they were so far off track that they just made the decision, I'm done, I'm going to try again. And I know that is maybe different from what people are used to hearing. People are used to hearing that it's a sin and all these
Mm.
things that happen. But I have always been shown that no matter how you cross, you are greeted with love and compassion and understanding, and you heal from the life that you lived, and you go on. Do you find that helpful at all, or does it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I find that helpful, definitely. It takes kind of the idea of like knowing your purpose and like knowing when you're on track also is something that I feel like a lot of people might struggle with understanding. Do you have any insight on how to
Yeah.
reach
So
that?
it's about connecting, right? It's about making time to get quiet and go within, whatever that looks like for you. So, people will say, I can't meditate, it's too hard or whatever. So go for a walk in nature and just get quiet. We all know that feeling of kind of zoning out when our head gets quiet. And we can just even, when we notice our head is going in circles and we keep thinking the same thoughts, just take our hands and actually move our energy down to our hearts and notice how our heads get quiet. And then when you're in that heart space, asking, what is one thing I could do today to be on purpose? Or what do I need to know? Or what is our purpose. People get really wrapped up in their purpose, and our purpose is to love ourselves and others. And when we do that, we find our way so easily. So it's about finding time within. We're so stuck in our heads, aren't we? And we're so taking in all of this outside information as authority. and we are the authority of our lives. It's a really big shift in thinking. It's not hard, it's just a different way of being.
Yeah, and I think just from observing other people and just my own experiences, yeah, the love is like what we're trying to get to. But sometimes hearing that can sound like a cheesy Hallmark greeting card. and,
Right.
or like a hippy dippy like saying that might be challenging to get to, but like once you get
Right.
there you can understand it. But I feel like there's a bridge that has to happen in order to be able to get to that point.
Right. So if the words being in love with yourself trigger you,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Then, and they all do, when we're all looking at healing, we none of us got out of childhood or being young adults or teenagers without scars. It's what we came here to experience, right? So healing means bringing those aspects of ourself that got a little bit closed off or shut down or frozen back into our heart. And it does sound trite when you're on the other side, but when you get there, that you've done the healing work and you've done the work of self-love, it's a different energy than that whole, love and light. It's completely different. So I would say if me saying, being in love with yourself makes you just go, ah, crap, I'm out of here, right?
Hmm.
Get quiet and notice where you're feeling that trigger in your body. Notice where you feel it and then start to dig underneath it. What is this about? Why am I so resistant to loving myself? What does it look like? What does it need? Where is it coming from? What's the story? Get really curious to the resistance, and that's what leads to healing, whatever it is that's bringing up the resistance. The resistance is there for a reason, and it's there to show you that this is ready to heal and to integrate.
Yeah, I think also the world right now has so many distractions too, and ways to numb, and like social media addiction and pornography and substance abuse and so many things that people go to because they're not able to get quiet.
Right. So the first thing is
Right.
recognizing our own behavior, right?
Yeah.
We go to it and we go, whoa, I just spent an hour on YouTube Shorts. Like what? It's
Right.
not what I needed, right? And really, some people will be able to go in within and meditate. And meditate just means to come out of your mind. It's not like this 60-minute thing that monks in caves did, 12,000 years ago. It's different in our fast-paced world. It's just taking that breath and allowing your energy to move down to your heart and asking the question. I know I don't really need this an hour of YouTube shorts. What do I need?
Hmm.
And listening with your whole body for the answer and practicing doing that so that it becomes normal for you.
Yeah. So how does one work with you? Like, because I feel like you do readings like
Right.
individually, but it also sounds like you teach people how to tune in to access their team. So if one would like to go on the journey of working with you, like what would that look like?
So I do one-on-ones, which is probably one of my favorite things to do. I love to work with people one-on-one and just connect in with their team and see where they are on their healing journey and help them. I always say I'm not the healer, the person I'm working with. You are your own healer. I'm able to access frequencies that you can tap into for healing. And I also really work with people on building their own soul sanctuary so that they can go in. It's like I can give you the tools to figure out how to go in for yourself. Um, and then the messages that come from spirit are often coming through so that it's like this opening, right? When you feel that message from spirit and you're like, oh my gosh, this is them, it opens you up to the possibilities of what's available to you. And we all have these huge teams. And then 4 times a year, I do a group 3-day class, online class called Reclaim Your Light. And we work on releasing and integrating and connecting for those 3 days. So, and then I'm local. I do a lot of sound baths and healing circles and all that kind of stuff.
Nice.
Yeah, kind of got my finger in a lot of pots.
Definitely. Yeah. So is there anything that we haven't like talked about yet that is on your mind or your heart that you feel like you would like to share?
I just think that we're all um, so capable of healing in so many areas of life. Um, and I think we've been taught that the healing comes from outside of us, that there's authorities outside of us. So it's always about finding your own power and kind of really, once you do, you figure out how really powerful you are. And that gets really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Once you dip your toe in, it gets kind of fun, doesn't it?
Yeah. And that's always joy is the signature of being on your path, right? And when it gets exciting and fun and you're like, whoa, this is cool, then it gets easier to listen to those messages and to tune in.
Excellent. So I have like one last question that I use to wrap up the show, and it can go on for much longer, or it can be succinct, and we can stop immediately. So, that question is: if your inner voice had a billboard, what would it say to the world?
Hmm. How big can the billboard be? I think it's hard to say just one thing, but I think like um, know thyself, love thyself, and be thyself.
Pretty.
You've got to know who you are, and that takes time and work, and it doesn't have to be hard work, but you need to look into who you are, and then really loving who you are, and then just stepping out into the world as who you are.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. So if people would like to find you on the internet or social media or anything like that, where can we guide them to?
So everything is just under my name. So my website is laurieparente.com. I'm on Instagram at Laurie Parente and YouTube at Laurie Parente.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
So
I-
welcome.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much. And until next time, stay tuned in to you.